Hello and welcome to my second vlog on skills versus capacities. The first case study will concern an athlete with poor lower limb strength, preventing them from maintaining a forward lean during the acceleration phase. I will discuss the technical model, provide a justification for the conclusion and training moving forwards. Starting with their start position, which is good. They've got a relaxed start with a lead leg out in front, they've got a forward lean and they've got a neutral spine and neck, which then moves into their first step, which is okay. They've got full triple extension in the stance leg. They've got forward trunk lean with a neutral spine, which is good for horizontal force application. However, there is limited knee drive. As we progress, the limited knee drive and short stride then continues compared to the athlete on the right, who has loaded the hips better to create greater downforce. You can also observe a greater trunk lean than shin angle, which has led to an upright posture and a high stride frequency rate. And then the weak knee drive continues as we progress over 30 metres. So in summary, there was a lack of power in the stance leg. There was an upright shin compared to the trunk, which shows lack of forward lean. His feet were under his centre of mass, which is bad for horizontal force production. And there was a high stride frequency and low stride length, which Schubert claims reduces ground reaction forces and the ability to absorb forces. Because of this, I decided to look at the athlete's strength and power. I looked at single leg power, which showed to be below average to normative data. There was also a poor plyometric ability, as the athlete achieved a score of less than 2, which Flanagan argues the athlete should focus on strength rather than plyos. A poor broad jump is also key, as Locke et al. Highlights that horizontal power is linked to acceleration, therefore possibly showing an inability to cope with horizontal forces. The poor shin lean observed in the acceleration is not linked to ankle mobility, as the athlete demonstrates a full range of movement during squats. So in summary, there was a poor plyometric ability demonstrated. There was an inability to cope with horizontal forces, shown through the forward shin lean and the poor broad jump, and mobility was ruled out as a potential issue. So in complete summary, there was a poor lower limb strength shown, which prevents forward lean to maximise horizontal force application, which was especially observed in lack of forward shin angle and ground contact underneath the centre of mass rather than behind, which creates vertical force application rather than horizontal. There was a good mobility demonstrated, but skill would still be an issue in the future. So moving forwards, lower limb exercises will be completed, such as jump squats, which will involve an eccentric and an explosive element. Now on to a skill-limited sprint, where poor knee drive and leg recovery prevents maximum force production on foot strike. Again, I'll go through the same process. Their acceleration phase is good, as they reach triple extension in their stance leg with a forward trunk lean and a large first step. So we looked at them at top speed. Regarding the swing phase, the knee is late when the stance leg is fully planted, which means the knee drive is weak and does not support hip extension for force production. So during the swing phase, the athlete demonstrates poor knee drive, which is observed through a shin not parallel to the floor on recovery and heels not by the hips. During the late stance, there is limited arm drive for force production, and the limited knee drive limits hip flexion, which is good for downforce upon foot strike. I felt that these were things that could be improved with practice. So I went through some sprint mechanic drills such as A-skips, which instantly show better knee drive and a neutral foot, which translated into top speed, where we see a better knee recovery on swing phase and a better knee drive on late stance with arm drive. As we can see on the pre and post images, there is a greater knee drive during the swing phase, which during the late stance means greater hip flexion for downforce, and triple extension is not fully achieved as the knee starts coming through immediately after takeoff. However, there is still push-off still far behind the centre of mass, which is not good for force production at greater speeds. To be certain about skill being the main issue for the lack of knee drive, I looked at the athlete's mobility, who can demonstrate good triple flexion during the squats, and who also showed acceptable scores during the knee to wall test, and full range during hip 90-90s. The athlete is a regular gym user and can achieve a counter movement jump of 42 centimetres, which is good for a football environment. So thinking critically, mobility and strength was not the issue for poor knee drive. The athlete can achieve better sprint positions with practice during the swing and late stance phases. Ultimately, the athlete has the capacity to perform, yet is limited by a lack of practice or familiarity with the technique. In summary, a better knee drive can facilitate better loading of the hip extensors for downforce and greater pre-activation before foot strike. Moving forward, we will continue with sprint mechanic drills and look at reducing the stance phase range underneath the centre of mass to optimise the leg spring to produce downforce. A general strength programme will be administered, as Morin et al. Argues hamstring strength is key for pulling back just before foot strike. Moving on to some agility, where this case study involves an athlete with poor eccentric strength, limiting his deceleration. Again, I'll go through the same process. This was first noticed in a drill involving a deceleration and a 360 foot pattern facing forwards the whole time with an acceleration. The athlete starts to slow down halfway down a 10-metre route. On the decel, they are leaning backwards to assist with their braking, with their centre of mass far behind their feet. The athlete is also taking big steps on their deceleration. I spotted lots of ground contact, which was good. However, starting their deceleration early possibly shows poor force absorption through triple flexion. The big steps needed is also not ideal if the athlete needs to change direction quickly. The next step was to break down into deceleration only. So breaking down to a decel only, there's short ground contact time, which Hewitt et al. Says you need long ground contact time to absorb horizontal forces, and also his hips are behind his knees and his shoulders behind his hips, which means his centre of mass is further back. DeSantis et al. Argues better triple flexion will lower the centre of mass and better absorb forces. However, too much flexion does not optimise force production. Having the shoulders in front of the hips also supports a change of direction. So assessing eccentric strength, we can observe shakiness on a single leg step down. However, the athlete is better on their right foot, possibly because they are right-footed. This is also obvious during reverse Nordics, as the athlete can't cope with much backwards lean and cannot complete many reps. It is a similar story with the eccentric groin exercises, which would possibly impact change of direction. It is worth noting that the athlete is tall and has a long leg length, which Caesar and Sigwood argue can cause destabilising forces during deceleration due to the higher centre of mass. Overall, poor eccentric strength was shown through leaning backwards and exercises in the gym, which prevents producing the ready position to accelerate or change of direction. If the shoulders are in front of the hips, it is easier to put the feet behind the centre of mass to re-accelerate. The athlete demonstrated good foot patterns, showing they have the key skills to perform optimally, however it is limited by strength capacities. Moving forwards, we'll focus on eccentric strength exercises, which De Hoyo et al. Argue improve peak braking forces and braking time during deceleration. And on to the final case study, which involves a poor ability to change direction in a sport-specific context, despite showing good technique previously during an isolated change of direction drill. Here you are watching the athlete complete a T-test, producing a time above average compared to normative data, showing good technique throughout. So just focusing on the 90-degree turn, we saw a foot planted wide outside the centre of mass, we saw his hips turned early to face the direction of travel, and we saw triple extension in his stance leg with a good knee drive. So in summary, the athlete had his feet wider than his knees to push his centre of mass horizontally efficiently, which was also assisted by good trunk lean in the direction of travel. His hips were turned early, and he had a powerful knee drive with triple extension. However, Young et al. Highlights that this test is change of direction based, as it is a pre-planned task, and that agility involves a reactive element. Also, Boyd's OODA loop argues that physical and cognitive events occur before carrying out an action. Therefore, I observe the athlete's performance with external stimuli. During this rep, I throw a ball for him to react to, showing less hip turn and a delayed knee drive at the same point during the stance leg. Next, as we can hear, I shouted a direction,
Left.
which showed a delayed reaction before making a move, which resulted in a suboptimum trunk lean, bringing his centre of mass closer to his planted foot, producing less horizontal force. To summarise, using the images on the right that show with and without external stimuli, his hips and upper trunk are less turned in the direction of travel, he has a timely decision-making process in response to audio stimulus, and there is suboptimal trunk lean during planting his outside leg, which would reduce his horizontal force application. The athlete has the capacity and the skills to perform a change of direction in isolation, however his technique is reduced when sport-specific external stimuli are added. To conclude, good change of direction technique was demonstrated during the T-test, which matched Jeffrey's 2006 criteria. However, this technique worsened once external stimuli were added, which prevented the athlete from maximising horizontal force application. The athlete showed an area of skill which he can improve with practice. Moving forwards, I will look to improve his awareness in a sporting context, involving performing drills with other people as obstacles and adding audio and visual external stimuli. Please see listed the references used throughout. Thanks for watching.